Decode relationships, transform connections. Welcome to the Motivation Hub. There comes a moment in life when you must decide, will you remain at the mercy of those who thrive on your insecurities, or will you reclaim the one thing they fear most, your independence? A narcissist's power over you is not built on their strength, but on your willingness to hand them control, and the moment you withdraw that willingness, they crumble. A narcissist's power is rooted in their ability to manipulate your emotions. They thrive on controlling how you feel, dictating what you believe about yourself, and orchestrating situations that keep you psychologically entangled with them. This is why their tactics are not based on reason or fairness, but rather on an intricate game of pushing and pulling, giving just enough to keep you invested, then withdrawing to make you crave their approval. Their dominance is not built on real strength, but on your emotional responses to them. As long as they can trigger reactions, whether through guilt, fear, anger, or even love, they remain in control. The key mechanism behind this is what psychologists call emotional enmeshment. In a healthy relationship, emotions are exchanged freely, and both individuals maintain autonomy over their own feelings. But with a narcissist, emotions become a weapon. They systematically dismantle your ability to trust your own perceptions, making you second-guess yourself. One moment, they shower you with admiration, making you feel seen and valued. The next, they withdraw affection, subtly making you question what you did wrong. This intermittent reinforcement, this unpredictable cycle of reward and punishment, is designed to create dependency. You become emotionally addicted to their validation, constantly seeking to regain their approval, often without realizing how deeply embedded this cycle has become in your psyche. A narcissist understands, either consciously or instinctively, that as long as you are emotionally invested, they remain significant in your life. This is why they are skilled at identifying what makes you tick, your vulnerabilities, your deepest insecurities, your need to feel loved or appreciated. They use this knowledge against you, weaving their influence into your self-perception, so that their opinion begins to define your reality. When they sense you pulling away, they will employ tactics designed to keep you tethered. They might guilt-trip you, painting themselves as the victim. They might provoke an argument, simply to keep you engaged. Even negative attention, to them, is better than being ignored. The worst thing you can do to a narcissist is to stop reacting altogether, because their existence depends on the emotional energy they extract from you. This is why breaking free is so difficult. It requires you to recognize how much control they have over your emotions, and to take deliberate steps to sever that connection. But most people don't realize how much of their emotional state is dictated by the narcissist until they attempt to detach. When you no longer allow their words to dictate your mood, when you stop justifying yourself to them, when you remove yourself from the cycle of validation seeking, you begin to strip them of their influence. They may lash out, they may double down on manipulation, but ultimately, they are powerless without your reactions. The shift that truly dismantles a narcissist's power is emotional detachment and self-validation. Narcissists operate by creating an emotional hook, ensuring that your sense of self-worth is tied to their approval. The more you seek their validation, the more control they have over your thoughts, actions, and emotions. This is why their manipulation works so effectively, because it keeps you in a state of constant self-doubt, always questioning whether you are good enough, whether you said the right thing, whether you are deserving of their affection. This creates a toxic cycle where you continuously adjust your behavior in an attempt to please them, but they keep moving the goalpost, making it impossible for you to ever truly win their approval. The only way to break free from this psychological trap is to shift your source of validation from external to internal. This means no longer looking to the narcissist or anyone else to define your worth. When you rely on external validation, you give power to others over your emotions. But when you begin to validate yourself, you take that power back. Narcissists cannot control someone who no longer needs their approval. They cannot manipulate someone who is indifferent to their opinions. This shift is not about ignoring reality or becoming emotionless. It is about developing an unshakable foundation within yourself, where your self-esteem is not dependent on how someone else perceives you. This process begins with recognizing how deeply conditioned you have been to seek validation. Society, upbringing, and past experiences often teach us that our worth is determined by how others respond to us. Narcissists exploit this conditioning to their advantage. They create situations where you feel the need to prove yourself to them, to earn their affection, or to justify your actions. The moment you stop participating in this game, you disrupt their entire strategy. You no longer feel the urge to defend yourself when they twist the truth. You no longer feel the need to explain your emotions when they try to make you feel guilty. You no longer seek closure from them because you understand that true closure comes from within, not from the person who caused the wound. Emotional detachment is not about suppressing emotions, but about controlling how you respond to them. When a narcissist attempts to provoke a reaction and you remain composed, they lose their leverage over you. When they try to guilt trip you and you simply acknowledge their words without internalizing them, they realize their tactics are no longer effective. This is the moment when their power begins to crumble, not because you fought them, but because you no longer play by their rules. Self-validation allows you to stand firm in your truth, regardless of how they attempt to distort it. It means trusting your own perception of reality instead of letting them dictate what you should think or feel. Once you master this shift, a narcissist can no longer hold power over you because their manipulation relies on your need for their validation, something they no longer have control over. Narcissists operate on a system of psychological supply. This supply is their fuel. The emotional responses they extract from you, the validation they demand, the power they feel when they can influence your thoughts and emotions. Unlike healthy individuals who derive fulfillment from genuine connection, narcissists need constant reinforcement of their superiority and control. They are not simply seeking attention, they are seeking dominance. They want to know that they can manipulate your perception of reality, that their words have the power to make you doubt yourself, that their approval or disapproval dictates your emotional state. This is why their behavior is often so calculated, fluctuating between affection and cruelty, admiration and contempt. Each tactic serves one purpose: to keep you emotionally invested in them, whether through love, fear, or frustration. A narcissist's supply is not just about admiration and praise. It also includes conflict, emotional chaos, and your desperate attempts to make sense of their behavior. They push buttons that trigger an emotional reaction, then feed off your distress. This is why they often create unnecessary drama, twist the truth to confuse you, and use gaslighting to make you second-guess your own reality. The goal is not just to be liked, it is to be the center of your emotional world, whether in a positive or negative way. As long as you are thinking about them, reacting to them, or trying to understand them, they remain in control. They thrive on your confusion, your pain, and even your attempts to reason with them, because to a narcissist, power is more important than peace. This is why withdrawing their supply is so devastating to them. When you stop reacting, when you refuse to play their game, they experience what is known as narcissistic injury, a deep internal panic that comes from realizing they no longer have the control they thought they did. They will try to provoke you, escalate their behavior, or even play the victim to lure you back in, anything to get an emotional reaction. They may shower you with love again, making you believe they have changed, only to revert to their old ways once they regain their grip on you. This cycle can continue indefinitely, unless you recognize what is happening and consciously decide to cut off their supply for good. The key to doing this is understanding that every time you engage, every time you argue, every time you try to prove your worth to them, you are feeding their need for control. The only way to break free is to stop giving them what they crave. This does not mean you suppress your emotions, but rather that you redirect them. Instead of wasting energy trying to change their behavior, you invest it in strengthening yourself. Instead of seeking their validation, you remind yourself that their opinion holds no real weight. Instead of reacting to their provocations, you detach and observe without engaging. When a narcissist realizes they no longer have an effect on you, they are forced to look elsewhere for supply. This is not because they respect you, but because without your emotional investment, they lose their source of power. Boundaries are the foundation of self-respect and emotional freedom, yet they are the very thing narcissists seek to dismantle. They thrive in environments where lines are blurred, where they can overstep without consequence, and where they can manipulate without resistance. A narcissist does not see boundaries as a healthy framework for mutual respect. They see them as obstacles to their control. This is why they test limits, pushing further each time you allow them to get away with something. If you let them speak to you disrespectfully once without standing firm, they will do it again, and worse. If you excuse their manipulation, they will escalate it. They operate on the principle that what they can get away with, they will continue to do. This is why boundaries must be non-negotiable. Many people set boundaries with the expectation that the narcissist will respect them if they explain them clearly enough, but this is a mistake. Narcissists do not respond to boundaries the way healthy individuals do. When a reasonable person encounters a boundary, they recognize it as a sign of mutual respect and adjust their behavior accordingly. A narcissist, on the other hand, sees a boundary as a challenge, a rule to be broken, a test of how much control they still have. They will try to manipulate you into removing your own boundaries by making you feel guilty, ashamed, or afraid of losing them. They might accuse you of being too sensitive, too rigid, or even selfish for wanting to protect your emotional space. This is all part of their strategy. The only way to establish real boundaries with a narcissist is through action, not explanation. A boundary is only as strong as its enforcement. If you tell a narcissist that you will not tolerate being spoken to in a disrespectful manner, but then continue engaging with them when they do, they will see that as permission to continue. If you say you will walk away when they start an argument but then stay and defend yourself, they learn that their behavior has no consequences. Words mean nothing to a narcissist, only actions do. This is why you must be prepared to enforce your boundaries without seeking their approval or understanding. Boundaries are not ultimatums, nor are they punishments. They are a declaration of self-worth. They are a commitment to yourself that you will not allow someone else to dictate your emotional state. But for them to work, you must believe in them yourself. Many people set boundaries but secretly hope the narcissist will change so they never have to enforce them. This leads to inconsistency, which the narcissist exploits. True boundaries require an internal shift, where you decide deep within yourself that you are no longer available for manipulation. When a narcissist sees that their usual tactics no longer work, they will react with anger, guilt-tripping, or even false promises of change. This is their last attempt to regain control. But the moment you stop justifying, stop explaining, and simply hold your ground, you disrupt their entire power structure. The narcissist loses control because the one thing they relied on, your willingness to bend, is no longer there. Self-worth must be internally driven, because the moment you allow someone else to dictate your value, you become vulnerable to their control. Narcissists thrive on this vulnerability. They seek out individuals who look to external sources for validation, people who feel the need to prove themselves, who crave approval, who have been conditioned to believe their worth is tied to how others perceive them. This is not by accident. A narcissist instinctively knows that if they can become the source of your validation, they can also become the source of your self-doubt. They set themselves up as the authority on your value, rewarding you when you meet their expectations and punishing you when you don't. This creates an emotional dependence, where your sense of worth fluctuates based on their shifting approval. At first, this may not even be obvious. Narcissists often start by building you up, making you feel special, admired, even irreplaceable. They mirror your desires, reflect back the qualities you most long to see in yourself, and make you feel like you are finally being truly seen. This is not genuine appreciation, it is a calculated setup. Because once they have made you emotionally reliant on their validation, they begin to withhold it. The same person who once praised you now criticizes you. The admiration you once received is replaced with subtle jabs, comparisons, or cold indifference. Suddenly you find yourself working harder to regain what was freely given in the beginning. You question yourself more, tolerate more, and accept things you never would have before, all in the hope that the narcissist will see your worth again. But this is the trap. Your worth never disappeared. It was only hidden beneath the illusion that they had the power to define it. Breaking free from this cycle requires a fundamental shift in where you derive your self-worth. It means no longer seeking external approval to feel good about yourself. It means realizing that no one, not a narcissist, not society, not even loved ones, has the authority to dictate your value. This shift is difficult because it goes against years of conditioning. From childhood, many people are taught to look outward for validation, whether through parental approval, academic achievements, or social acceptance. Narcissists exploit this conditioning, reinforcing the belief that love and validation must be earned. The truth is, self-worth is not something you gain through performance or external recognition. It is something you claim for yourself, independent of how others perceive you. This shift happens when you start to trust yourself over the opinions of others. It happens when you stop explaining, stop justifying, and stop seeking permission to be who you are. When you detach from the need to be seen in a certain way, you become untouchable to a narcissist. Their disapproval no longer triggers self-doubt. Their insults lose their sting. Their attempts to withhold affection have no effect because you no longer seek it as a measure of your value. This does not mean you become indifferent to all external opinions, but rather that you no longer let them define you. The moment you internalize your worth, a narcissist loses all control over you because their entire power dynamic depends on your need for their validation. Without that, they have nothing left to manipulate. Healing from narcissistic control requires breaking free from the illusion they created, the false reality where your emotions were dictated by their approval, your worth was determined by their validation, and your boundaries were constantly compromised to maintain their favor. Narcissists do not just manipulate behavior, they manipulate perception. They rewrite your understanding of what is normal, what is acceptable, and what you should tolerate. Over time, you begin to question yourself instead of them, adjusting your reactions to avoid conflict, doubting your own memories, and suppressing your true feelings to keep the peace. This is not accidental. It is by design. A narcissist's power lies in their ability to distort reality, making you feel that their needs, their emotions, and their opinions are more important than your own. The process of breaking free is not simply about walking away, it is about reclaiming your own perception of reality. It means learning to trust yourself again, to believe in your own thoughts, and to recognize that what you felt and experienced was real. A narcissist's greatest trick is convincing you that your emotions were overreactions, that your pain was self-inflicted, that your concerns were unwarranted. The only way to heal is to undo that conditioning, to remind yourself that your feelings were valid, that your instincts were correct, and that you had every right to stand up for yourself. The moment you begin to trust your own perception over their manipulations, you shatter their power. This process is not instant. Narcissistic control operates like a slow erosion, gradually wearing away at your self-confidence and clarity. Healing requires rebuilding what was taken from you piece by piece. You must reconnect with yourself, rediscover the voice that was silenced, and allow yourself to feel without fear of judgment. This means acknowledging the damage, not to dwell in pain but to fully understand what was done to you so you can reclaim your strength. Many who break free from narcissistic relationships struggle with residual self-doubt, asking themselves if they were really the problem, if they could have done more, if they misunderstood everything. This is a direct result of the gaslighting and emotional manipulation that kept them trapped. The only way to move forward is to reject those false narratives and trust in your own truth. Part of healing is also learning to separate who you are from what you experienced. Narcissistic abuse can leave deep emotional wounds, leading you to question your worth, your ability to trust, and your capacity to love again. But your identity is not defined by what someone else did to you. You are not broken, you are not weak, and you are not incapable of moving forward. What you endured was painful, but it does not define you. You define yourself. The strength you build in reclaiming your sense of self is what allows you to not only heal but to ensure you never fall into the same trap again. Healing also requires releasing the need for closure. A narcissist will never give you the resolution you seek because their entire manipulation was built on keeping you emotionally entangled. They want you to keep questioning, keep wondering, keep hoping that one day they will acknowledge the harm they caused. But waiting for a narcissist to admit their wrongs is another way of giving them control. True closure does not come from them, it comes from within you. It comes from accepting that you may never get an apology, never get validation from them, never hear them admit the truth. And that is okay because their recognition of your pain is not necessary for your healing. What matters is that you see the truth for yourself. As you heal, you begin to recognize the patterns that once controlled you. You become more aware of red flags, more protective of your energy, and more discerning in who you allow into your life. You stop tolerating toxic behavior, not because you are hardened, but because you have learned to value yourself too much to entertain it. The strength you gain from healing does not just free you from the narcissist, it transforms you into someone who can never be manipulated again. You no longer seek validation from those who do not deserve your energy. You no longer allow yourself to be drawn into emotional chaos, and you no longer believe the lie that you must shrink yourself to keep someone else comfortable. The final step of healing is reclaiming joy. Narcissistic control thrives on negativity, on making you feel anxious, guilty, and unworthy. Breaking free means allowing yourself to embrace life again, to find happiness in the smallest moments, to rebuild relationships that were strained, and to pursue dreams that were once put on hold. Healing is not just about escaping pain. It is about rediscovering who you are beyond the wounds. You are more than what was done to you. You are more than the manipulations, the gaslighting, the betrayals. You are whole, you are strong, and you are free. When you shift your mindset and take back control of your emotions, validation, and self-worth, a narcissist loses their power over you. Their manipulation relies on your emotional reactions, your need for their approval, and your willingness to tolerate their overstepping. But the moment you detach, enforce firm boundaries, and stop seeking their validation, they become powerless. They may try to provoke, guilt trip, or even play the victim, but none of it matters once you see through their tactics. You no longer play their game because you no longer need their approval to feel whole. True freedom comes when you realize that your worth has never been in their hands. It has always been within you. When you walk away emotionally, when you stop feeding their need for control, they are left with nothing. Their words no longer define you. Their absence no longer wounds you. Their attempts to regain control no longer work, because now you know the truth. You were never the weak one. You simply hadn't yet recognized your own strength. But now you do, and that changes everything. Good luck on your journey to reclaiming your power. You are stronger, wiser, and more capable than you realize. Thank you for taking the time to invest in yourself. You deserve freedom, peace, and a life without manipulation. Stay strong and never forget your worth.
You want him to yearn for you, not just emotionally, but physically. Not in a quick surface level way, but in that deep instinctive hunger that keeps his thoughts revolving around your presence. This isn't manipulation, it's attraction. And once you understand these 5 truths, you won't feel the need to chase his attention. He'll be pulled toward you naturally. Every woman has an unspoken strength. It's not about appearance or tricks of seduction, but rather about energy, presence, and the way she expresses her femininity. If you've ever asked yourself how to make a man desire you, not just with his eyes, but with every part of him, this is where it starts. These 5 elements will stir something inside him that he cannot control. A woman's confidence is not something borrowed, rehearsed, or worn like a costume. It is something that grows from within, formed by self-worth and reflected in her presence. When a woman fully lives in her body, when she moves with calm certainty, not arrogance, it sends a clear message to a man's mind and body. She is aware of her identity and doesn't rely on approval to validate her. This type of woman doesn't seek attention, but somehow attention seeks her. She doesn't feel the need to over-explain, overdo, or overshare because her worth doesn't need to be displayed to be acknowledged. It's seen by those with the depth to notice. And in that recognition, men don't just glance. They stay. They desire. They become curious about what it would be like to be close to her, to touch her, to truly be noticed by her. When you enter a space, what speaks louder than any words is your body language, how your shoulders rest, how your eyes travel, how grounded your stance is. Men are instinctively tuned to react to signals that suggest strength, structure, and stability. But when a woman shows graceful control over herself, without speaking a word, he senses her as someone he cannot dominate, and that makes her all the more appealing. She's not trying to be alluring. She simply is. Her completeness is the magnet. The lack of neediness, the absence of efforts to impress, it becomes a silent force. The more secure she is in her worth, the more his mind races to get closer. This isn't about being loud, flashy, or outwardly sexual. True feminine pull is subtle. A smile that lingers slightly longer. A glance that pauses, then vanishes. A calm in the storm that draws the chaos toward her without her chasing anything. Men crave that tension, the kind that can't be rationalized. He starts noticing details. The movement of your hand while speaking, the composed confidence as you sip a drink, the way you say no with grace. These moments embed themselves in his awareness, and he might not even understand why. He just feels drawn in. You don't have to match other women who are younger, trendier, louder. Feminine strength isn't measured by volume, but by presence. When you accept every curve, every mark, every line, and move like you belong in your skin, Men don't see flaws. They see liberation. And that freedom is intoxicating, it's rare, it's potent, it's magnetic. There is something deep inside a man that recognizes a woman who cannot be shaken, not because she's never been broken, but because she's healed and continued. That essence affects him. It makes him want to be near her, to be good enough for her, not to fix her, but to know what it feels like to be chosen by someone like her. Confidence isn't only in appearance, it's in your energy. It's the choice not to shrink, not to apologize for your being, not to dim your light for the comfort of others. When you carry that kind of energy, even the smallest gestures become sensual. The way you shift your hair, how you cross your legs, the breath you take after finishing a sentence, every move becomes a message. Not rehearsed, not just read out. Men are by nature seekers, and confidence activates that instinct, not because you're playing hard to get, but because your attention cannot be assumed. That's the contrast. A woman who needs a man fuels his ego. A woman who doesn't need him but enjoys his company stirs his core. That tension, mental, physical, emotional, is what makes his desire burn. A woman who's in command of her presence also embraces silence. She doesn't rush to fill the space between words. She lets him wonder. She lets the stillness speak. One of the most overlooked expressions of feminine power is quiet. We live surrounded by noise. But the woman who finds peace in silence becomes striking in a world that shouts. Men don't want constant noise. They want to feel that the woman in front of them is present, not distracted, not performing, not seeking praise. She is simply there. And that grounded presence draws him in without effort. Confidence also brings clarity, and clarity is extremely attractive. A woman who understands what she wants, what she stands for, what she loves, and what she refuses, she creates a sense of safety around her. She doesn't plead for love, doesn't over-justify her feelings, doesn't lower her standards for validation. She simply exists in her truth. And by doing that, she becomes a mirror, a reflection that forces him to examine his own strength, his own honesty, his own readiness. He may not express it in words, but inside he's asking himself, am I strong enough to be next to her? That thought stays with him. It challenges him. And if his answer is yes, he won't just want you emotionally, he'll yearn for you physically with a heat that is ancient and undeniable. Men may be triggered visually, but what truly captures their deeper desire is energy. That energy that enters a space before you speak, stays after you're gone, and says more than speech ever could. Feminine energy, when fully alive and owned, becomes a presence that a man cannot resist. It's not only what you say, it's how your words flow, how your voice carries, the kindness in your eyes, the openness in your posture. It's how your entire body joins the moment, tuned to the invisible wave of feeling. Men don't always register this consciously, but they feel it. And once they've felt it, they crave it again. This isn't about being over-sexual or false. It's about being awake in your own body, aware of your senses, and unafraid to share that glow. When you speak softly, is it because you're unsure or because you own that softness? There's a distinction. Men sense it. A woman who speaks with calm certainty doesn't appear weak. She feels wise, aware, and firmly rooted in her femininity. And that kind of presence is extremely powerful. It's not performance, it's presence. And presence is the heartbeat of desire. Men long for the woman who feels genuine, not bland or predictable, but the kind who stirs his spirit. When you take your time, lean in, speak with emotional weight and deliberate pacing, you open a space where he breathes differently. You soften his guard. You don't just offer words, you offer depth. You let him feel you not just your thoughts, but your emotional reality. That emotional weight combined with grounded energy becomes unforgettable. It stands out. It feels sacred. And his body responds before his mind can explain it. It's the subtle moments that ignite desire. The tilt of your head when intrigued, the pause of your lips before you speak, the softness in your eyes when you're deeply listening, not waiting to talk. These natural cues, when real, are powerful, not because they're played, but because they are rare glimpses of true feminine presence. Our world has taught women to hurry, compete, and mirror masculine energy. But what truly awakens craving in a man is not a woman who mirrors him, but one who complements him, one who brings him back to his feelings. There's a quiet mystery in the way energy flows through a feminine woman. It doesn't shout for notice. It draws it. She may say very little, but somehow he can't think straight, not because of her outfit, but because of her energy. Her essence was open, warm, and steady, but it also sparked something electric. No begging, no pretense, no chase. Just a glowing presence behind her being. And that inner flame stays with him. That warmth remains in his memory. He wants to be physically close because what she gave him emotionally stayed long after she was gone. This is also why vulnerability, when held with strength, is magnetic. A woman who can speak her truth gently without shame, she holds attention. A quiet, "that really touched me," or "I've never shared this before," delivered with emotional depth, shifts something inside a man. He feels pulled to you, not just to protect you emotionally, but to connect with you physically. Vulnerability is deeply tied to closeness. And when a woman is both emotionally open and energetically stable, she becomes unforgettable. She opens a door very few ever do. And any man who walks through that door will never view her the same way again. You don't have to exaggerate your gestures or put on dramatic expressions. Actually, the less effort you make, the more powerful you seem. Feminine energy flows most naturally when it isn't restricted, forced, or aimed at impressing. It simply exists. When you allow it to flow freely, when you let yourself be seen, heard, and felt without always trying to control the outcome, you offer something rare to men, the genuine essence of femininity. And when they feel that, they don't just want to be near you, they yearn for it. They imagine holding it, touching it, tasting it, not only in a physical way, but in a deeper, more complete sense, because what you're offering goes beyond physical attraction. It's about energetic connection. This is why sensuality is important, not sexuality, but sensuality, the ability to experience and share delight in small, everyday things, the softness of a fabric brushing your skin, the scent of something comforting, the rhythm of your breathing. When a man sees a woman fully connected to her senses, he envisions how she might awaken his own. When you laugh with your whole body, when you sigh with honest pleasure, when you close your eyes to truly feel, he sees it, and it stirs something primitive in him. Not because you're trying to entice him, but because you're fully alive. And there's nothing more attractive to a man than a woman who is completely alive. Remember this. Your energy isn't invisible. It's loud to those who are sensitive to it. And when a man meets a woman who communicates through her presence, who holds both tenderness and strength in the same breath, he begins to want her in a way he can't fully explain. She doesn't just become someone he wants to hold. She becomes someone he feels compelled to absorb, to connect with on a level he didn't know he was missing. That longing has little to do with simple desire and everything to do with emotional energy. He is drawn to what makes him feel real, present, and alive. And that, dear woman, is you. Touch is one of the oldest forms of communication between a man and a woman. It existed before language, goes around logic, and speaks directly to the body and mind. It's not about how much, it's about how meaningful. A single mindful touch can echo in a man's memory more than 1,000 sentences. But the kind of touch that makes a man want you deeply is not careless. It's full of feeling, filled with emotion, and carries weight. This is where many people miss the mark. They think touch is only meant to excite or start something physical. But true feminine touch is sacred. It expresses safety, joy, affection, mystery, and honor all at once. And once you understand that, you won't need to start physical closeness directly because he'll already be moving closer, wanting it. A man's body reacts to subtle touches. The casual sweep of your fingers across his arm while laughing, the soft tracing of his palm while sitting beside him, the light placement of your hand on his chest as you make a point. These small, mindful gestures, when paired with emotional awareness, create a magnetic pull. You're not grabbing at him. You're not demanding. You're welcoming him into an experience of feeling. That invitation doesn't scream, it whispers. And that whisper bypasses his logic and lands directly in his nervous system. He'll think about that moment later, while at work, driving, lying in bed, wondering why your touch still lingers in his thoughts. The difference between forgettable touch and unforgettable connection lies in purpose. When you touch out of habit or routine, it carries little spark. But when your fingers meet his hand during a quiet pause, when your skin lingers a second longer than needed, it awakens something in him. Because it's not just the physical feeling that draws him in, it's the message carried by that touch. It says, I'm here with you. I like this moment. I like being near you. These messages aren't spoken aloud, but they're deeply understood through your presence. And when a man feels truly safe and wanted in your touch, he'll want more. Not just in a sexual sense, but emotionally. He'll find reasons to be near you, to reach for your hand, to lean closer. Because your touch feeds a kind of emotional hunger he rarely admits to having. This is how the feminine body becomes a place of comfort for the masculine. When you allow yourself to be soft, welcoming, and giving with your touch, without being clingy, you offer him a quiet kind of peace. In a world that tells him to stay guarded, you give him a space where he doesn't have to try, doesn't have to prove anything. You don't have to say, I'm here for you. Your hand on his shoulder, your fingers at the back of his neck, a hug that holds on just a little longer. Those say more than words ever could. And when he connects your body with calm, presence, and delight, he doesn't just want it now and then. He starts to associate your touch with a return to who he truly is. Here's something powerful to understand. Masculine men don't just want to be excited, they want to be chosen. A woman's touch, when it's intentional, says, you are welcome here. I choose to be here with you. That feeling of being selected by a radiant, steady woman has the power to unlock even the most emotionally guarded man. And when he lets his guard down, his desire shifts. It moves past surface level wanting into something much deeper. Your touch becomes more than temptation. It becomes his grounding point. It draws him back again and again, not just for the pleasure, but for the way it made him feel, seen, valued, alive, calm. But giving this kind of touch requires you to be present in your own body. If you're anxious, distracted, or emotionally elsewhere, your touch won't carry energy. That's why embodiment matters so much in feminine energy. When you are in your body, feeling your breath, your skin, your movements, your touch becomes alive, and men can sense that. A woman who is truly embodied, who lays her head on his shoulder with quiet honesty, can awaken more desire in him than any seductive message. Her truth is clear without her saying a word. You don't need to perform when it comes to affection. You don't need to prove you're attractive. You're most attractive when you're deeply connected to yourself. That self-connection is what creates the kind of touch he never forgets. Yes, there's a time for boldness, for intense passion, but never underestimate the sacred power of slow movements, of stillness, of gentle care. These qualities are rare now. Men may not know how to ask for them, but they recognize them when they feel them. And when they do, they will forever associate that feeling with you. The truth is, you can touch a man's body or you can touch his soul through his body. When you bring presence, feeling, and intention into the way you touch, you move beyond the physical. You step into the emotional and even the spiritual. That's where real longing begins, not from pressure or lust, but from deep, safe connection. A man doesn't crave a woman just because she's loud or bold. He craves her because something in her calm, in her touch, woke up a part of him that had been asleep. And now that he's awake, he can't return to life before her. He needs her. He dreams of her, her hands, her warmth, her energy. Because her touch wasn't just physical. It spoke to something deeper. Desire starts where life energy lives. A woman who shows desire not just for a man, but for life itself is magnetic. She doesn't move through the world dull or apologetic. She glows from the inside, not because someone told her to shine, but because she chose to. And when a man meets a woman who is passionate about living, not clingy but inspired, he is drawn to her. Why? Because masculine energy is naturally attracted to feminine vitality. He may chase beauty, he may admire intelligence, but what he longs for is the inner spark of a woman who is fully awake. The way she pauses to enjoy the sun on her skin, the lift in her voice when she talks about something that excites her, the freedom in her laughter, it wakes something within him. Her presence doesn't just enter a space, it transforms it. We often believe desire is about sex, but real desire, deep, soulful desire, is about living your truth. It's about owning your hunger for more without shrinking yourself. A woman who can admit she wants, not from lack, but from wholeness, is unforgettable. She breaks rules without even trying. They're upset because they lost something that doesn't come around twice in one lifetime. People often go through life thinking that greatness will always be within reach. They assume that loyalty can be replaced. They treat honesty like it's something optional. And when someone like you steps into their life, someone steady, someone who loves with their whole heart, someone who brings truth into a world full of lies, they panic. They don't know how to handle it because it scares them. You weren't just a good person. You were rare, a bright light in a space they had already given up on. But their pride made them think they could play games with someone like that. They believed you'd stay no matter how often they lied, how often they crossed your boundaries, how often they tested how far you would go. But you didn't break. You walked away. And now they're angry, not just with you, but more with themselves. They're not mad because you failed them. They're mad because they failed themselves. They're angry because you were real and they treated you like you didn't matter. They were so used to controlling, pretending, and manipulating that when someone finally showed up with something pure, they couldn't handle it. Their ego convinced them they had time. Their pride told them they could always win you back. But now the silence between you is louder than anything they ever heard from your lips. And that silence is driving them crazy. You want to know why it hurts them so much now? Because the truth has finally caught up with them. Their little act is over. The mask came off and no one cheered. You were the only person who saw their pain and didn't walk away. You saw their scars, their fears, and their mess, and still you stayed for a while. But they took your presence for granted. They thought your patience meant you were passive, and now they sit with the results of their actions. That regret is not light. It follows them in quiet moments. It hides behind their laughter. It lies in their chest when the world slows down and they have no distractions left. That's when your absence becomes the loudest. That's when the truth claws its way into their mind. They lost something powerful. They lost someone who truly cared. They replay everything. What they said, what they did, what they should have done differently. But it's too late. You're not only gone in body, you've moved on in spirit. You've changed, you've grown. You've finally seen that being rare means not everyone deserves to have you. And that truth has made you stronger. They can see that now, and they hate it. They hate that you're not chasing after them. They hate that you're not broken down, hoping for their return. They hate that you're glowing without them, because deep down they know they were the cause. And now they're stuck with themselves. That's the strongest form of justice life can offer, letting someone live with the full weight of what they ruined. And it cuts even deeper because they know this kind of connection doesn't come again. Some people spend decades searching for the kind of love, loyalty, and emotional honesty that you brought. It's not something you get a second chance at. It's a once-in-a-lifetime gift, and they destroyed it. Don't let their anger steal your peace. Don't let their bitterness touch your joy. You are not responsible for the weight they carry now. That's on them. They built that. They have to carry it. What matters now is that you remember who you are. You remember what you offered. You remember that you gave your best, and that's something to be proud of, not ashamed. The fact that they're still angry, the fact that it bothers them this much is proof that you matter. You walked away with your self-respect, and now you walk forward with strength, with clarity, and with a deeper respect for yourself. You're not bitter, you're wiser. You're not broken, you've been reborn. And while they sit in the middle of the mess they created, you're building something new, something no one will ever be able to take from you again. Let their anger be a sign. Let it remind the world that not everyone is replaceable and not every loss can be healed. You are a once-in-a-lifetime kind of love, and now they have to carry that truth like a shadow they'll never outrun. They didn't know what they had when they had it. That's a fact that many people learn too late. They saw your kindness, your patience, your strong heart, and they didn't value it. They took advantage of it. They thought your gentleness was a trick. They assumed your silence was weakness. And worst of all, they believed that you needed them more than they needed you. That was the biggest mistake they could make. When someone stays loyal in a world full of selfishness and games, it makes people uncomfortable, especially those who are used to chaos. It shows them what they don't want to see. It highlights their instability, their shallowness, their fear of giving what they ask for. And instead of rising to your level, they try to pull you down. They played games not because they were clever, but because they were scared. Scared of being seen, scared of being truly loved, scared of being understood. So what did they do? They tested you. They caused drama just to see if you'd leave. They turned your loyalty against you. Because when you kept showing up, when you kept choosing kindness over anger, forgiveness over revenge, they misunderstood it as weakness. They thought they had power over you. They believed they were in control. But what they didn't realize was this: your loyalty was a decision, not a weakness. You stayed because you loved, not because you couldn't walk away. That's the difference they never understood until it was too late. They lived in a world where love was a tool and loyalty was just something to play with. And now they've woken up to the cold truth. They let go of the only person who stood by them without needing anything back. You didn't ask for perfection. You wanted honesty. You didn't need everything. You just asked for basic respect. But they couldn't give you that because they were too focused on themselves to notice what they had right in front of them. It's sad, but it's also fair, because when someone betrays someone loyal, they lose more than love. They lose a reflection. You showed them what they didn't want to fix in themselves. Your love was uncomfortable because it was real, and real love makes people grow. Real loyalty brings responsibility, and they weren't ready for that. So they chose to run, to lie, to create distance. But they never thought you'd be done for good. And when you left, that's when it all came crashing down. That's when they realized the mask wouldn't work anymore, that the person they thought they could break actually had limits. You didn't walk away because you didn't love them. You walked away because you finally loved yourself more. That's what kills them now. Not just that you're gone, but how you left, quietly, strongly, without needing to explain or defend yourself. And that silence, it screams louder than any fight ever could. Now they live with the memory of a love they'll never find again. They meet new people, but it doesn't feel the same. They look for you in others, but nobody brings that same peace, that same truth, that same solid loyalty wrapped in gentle strength. And with every passing day, that truth digs deeper into their pride. Because when they had you, they thought you were just average. Only when you were gone did they realize you were rare. So yes, they're mad. But it's not you they're mad at. They're mad at themselves. They're mad because they broke something unbreakable, and now they must live with the fallout. They're angry because you were everything they ever said they wanted, and they threw it away. They're bitter because they threw away something beautiful, something simple and strong. Now they're surrounded by distractions that don't touch their soul the way you did. You were never weak. You were powerful in ways they never saw until it was too late. Your loyalty wasn't a flaw. It was your standard. And now they know not everyone deserves to meet that standard. Not everyone can reach it. They had a chance to grow. Instead, they chose to play games. And now they're left behind. Let that be a reminder. Not everyone who loses you will understand what they lost right away. But eventually the truth finds them. And when it does, it doesn't come softly. It hits like a storm in the quiet, reminding them of the love they wasted, the loyalty they damaged, and the one soul they'll never hold again. They're angry now, but their anger isn't truly for you. It's turned inward because deep in the silence, when the noise fades and there's no one left to distract them, they know. They know exactly what they did. They had something rare and they broke it. That kind of self-betrayal, that kind of awareness that you could have made better choices and didn't, is almost too much to bear. That's where the real pain comes from. It's not your silence. It's not your strength. It's not your absence. It's the truth of what they did. You were never the villain. In fact, you were the only one who really tried to love them through their pain. You saw the damage. You saw the patterns. You saw the wounds. And you still stayed for a while hoping they'd rise above it. You gave them a chance to heal, a chance to grow, a chance to be honest. But I didn't take it. They assumed you'd always be there because they believed they had all the time in the world. They thought someone like you would never stop waiting, always forgiving, always returning. That belief that they could keep violating your trust without any real consequences is what troubles them now. They're stuck with the harsh truth that they weren't just careless with your heart. They were harmful. Every time they lied, twisted the truth, or drove you away, they weren't just wounding someone else. They were tearing apart their own shot at something true. It's easy to shift blame, to accuse others and come up with justifications. But in the quiet, when there's no one left to argue with, all they're left with is their reflection. And that reflection holds a truth they can't avoid. They lost someone who genuinely cared, and the worst part is it was entirely their fault. That's the core of their anger. That's why their rage feels so intense, because they can't run from the fact that they ruined it themselves. There's nobody else to fault. You gave everything. They misused it. You stood by them while they gambled with your loyalty. You were sincere while they hid behind facades. And now they have to sit with the permanent effects of their decisions. Maybe they'll lash out. Maybe they'll twist the story, make you the problem, try to believe you were too emotional or too much. But that's not the truth. It's just a wall they throw up to avoid looking at the reality that's gnawing at them from inside. Because deep down, they know. They turned away the one person who genuinely wanted to help them heal. And now that you're gone, it's not because you stopped caring. It's because you finally started caring about yourself enough to leave. And that leaves a unique kind of sting. Because while they were playing with your emotions, you were dreaming of a future. While they were deflecting blame, you were becoming wiser. And while they were stuck in habits of denial and destruction, you chose growth and clarity. They notice it now. They see your peace, your strength, your transformation. And it stands in painful contrast to the chaos they still can't escape. They thought they were ahead when they had control over your emotions, when they could make you doubt yourself, when they could manipulate your kindness. But that's no longer the case. Now your silence speaks louder than any excuse they give. Now your absence is a constant echo of everything they wreck. That kind of loss, that kind of regret, it doesn't just disappear. It stays. It follows them around. It whispers at night when they're alone. It shows up when they try to connect with someone new, because nothing matches the depth of what they had and ruined. The mind can only hide guilt for so long. Eventually it seeps out. It appears in their restlessness, their racing thoughts, their inability to feel settled. And what they're going through now, it's not just a bad mood. It's a deep and lasting unease. They're not just angry. They're in pain. They carry the weight of all the damage they caused. And every day they avoid making it right, that weight only gets heavier. There's a particular kind of suffering that comes with realizing you were the reason for your own collapse. It's not the same as being hurt by someone else. It's knowing you turned your back on something you needed, that you broke something that won't come again. And the cruelest truth? There's no undoing it. Once someone sees you walk away and never come back, that image stays with them. You become the one that got away, not because of destiny, but because of their failure to show up when it mattered. So now they sit in that anger, but it's empty. It's not coming from a place of being wronged. It's coming from the knowledge that they were given gold and treated it like it was replaceable. And they lost it. They had a chance at something rare and they threw it away. They could have grown with you. They could have healed beside you, but they chose destruction. And now all they have are memories they can't edit or undo. That's the fire they sit in, the fire of their own actions. And while they burn with that regret, you're moving forward. You walk with less weight, more wisdom, and the kind of inner calm they never could give you. You gave them your best, and now you give yourself the peace they never knew how to protect. And that's unforgettable. There's a silence that speaks louder than any argument. And it's that silence you left behind. You didn't slam the door. You didn't give a final speech. You simply stepped back quietly, gently, firmly. And in doing so, everything changed because they were convinced you'd stay. They expected another fight, another plea, another round of forgiveness, but instead you vanished. And that silence broke their illusion into pieces. They never expected your calm. They were prepared for noise, for the same drama and chaos they were used to controlling. That was their comfort zone. That's how they kept the upper hand. But they never imagined that your silence could carry so much power. They never thought that your decision to say nothing would be the loudest response of all. Because when someone who gave their all suddenly gives nothing, that contrast is unbearable. Your presence was a gift. They didn't treat it like one, but it was. Every time you showed up, listened, gave them a chance, it was an act of grace. And now that you're not there, the weight of that absence is heavy. It lingers in the air. It's present in the stillness. It makes them restless, not because you're doing anything, but because you're no longer doing everything. And that nothing you're doing, it's the loudest truth they've ever had to face. No confrontation, no final scene, no big moment they can twist into a reason to blame you, just a quiet ending, a final absence that they can't spin, a loss they can't dress up. And that's the part that gets louder with time. Because with every passing day, the reality becomes clearer. You're not coming back. And now every new person they try to fill the void with feels less satisfying, more shallow, more forced, because no one brings what you did so naturally, that calm, that steadiness, that emotional depth. They told themselves they could move on, that people like you are everywhere. But now they know. Now they understand how rare you were. Now they see that people with your kind of heart don't come around often. They bet everything on the belief that you weren't one of a kind, and they lost. And your quiet exit, that shook them more than any dramatic ending ever could, because it forced them to sit with the real problem, themselves. It left them face to face with the guilt, the confusion, the truth. They can't blame you. They can't flip the narrative, because every time they remember how you walked away, they're reminded it was their actions that made you leave. Not because you didn't care, not because you weren't trying, but because they wouldn't meet you halfway. And that's where true strength lies, not in revenge, not in shouting, but in choosing yourself so completely that your silence becomes their mirror. And what they see in that mirror, it hurts. They see every false word, every manipulative move, every opportunity they had to do better and chose not to. There's no going back. No story they can tell themselves to make it go away. You were there, and then you weren't. And it was because of them. They can try to drown it out with parties, with people, with distraction, but the ache remains. It's not just your voice that's missing. It's your presence, the calm you brought, the trust, the way you gave without keeping score. That kind of energy doesn't just vanish and leaves a hole. And that hole is filled with regret because you didn't walk away easily. You stayed longer than most would. You cared deeper than they deserved. You were willing to go through the hard stuff with them, but they kept testing you. They confused your kindness with weakness. They thought your patience had no end. But when they crossed that final line, you didn't yell. You didn't beg. You just walked away. That's what haunts them now. They don't know how to undo it. They don't know how to reach you now. And watching you rise without them, that's the hardest part, because it proves what they were afraid to admit. You didn't need them. You chose them. And now you're choosing peace instead. That peace is your power. And that silence, that's their prison. You didn't destroy them. They did that themselves. And you never had to prove your worth. Your absence does that for you every single day. That's the justice. That's the beauty. You keep growing, and they're stuck in the ruins they created. And the longer you're gone, the louder that silence becomes, until it's all they hear. So keep going, keep growing, keep being quiet. Let your absence do the talking. Let it echo. Let it linger. Because sometimes the most important lessons are learned in the quiet. And now they're learning every day just how powerful your silence really is. They didn't realize it when they had you. That's the truth that eats away at them. You were rare, not just in who you were, but in how you loved. When you are young, you believe that family will always stay the same. Parents, children, brothers, sisters, cousins. You imagine those bonds will never break. You think they are strong, permanent, unshakable. But as the years pass, as you reach your 60s, 70s, and 80s, a different reality begins to appear. You slowly discover something that no one really warned you about. Family does not stay the same. It changes in ways that are sometimes surprising, sometimes painful, and often difficult to accept. The roles you once knew begin to reverse, the connections you thought were eternal begin to loosen, and the people you assumed would always stand by you may no longer be there in the same way. What once felt secure can suddenly feel fragile. One of the most surprising truths you learn with age is how money changes family dynamics. If you want to see the real side of people, bring money into the picture. When wills, inheritances, or property are discussed in your later years, new sides of your family appear, sides you may have never seen before. Some of your children may genuinely love and care for you, but for others, the thought of what you will leave behind becomes a silent motivation. Suddenly, visits may happen more often, but not because of care, because of calculation. Words may sound gentle, but the intention is fear of being cut off. And when the moment comes to divide what you worked for your whole life, fights break out, siblings turn against each other, and bonds that once felt unbreakable can shatter in a single night. This leaves many parents and older relatives feeling hurt and disappointed. They begin to see that to some family members, their worth is not who they are, but what they own. That truth is heartbreaking, but at the same time, it brings clarity. Once you see it clearly, you can protect yourself. Handle your financial matters early, before anyone has the chance to push or pressure you. Give while you are alive if that is your choice, but never in a way that puts you at risk. Watch carefully how people treat you when there is no money involved. That is where real loyalty is revealed. Do not be fooled by sweet words that hide selfish intentions. Real love shows itself when there is nothing to gain. And above everything, remember this: your money was meant to take care of your life, not to buy love or control people. Use it to bring yourself peace and comfort. Let your final gift to your family be blessings, not fights. Because in the end, what you leave behind is not only your property, but also the example of dignity and wisdom you live by. Another truth that becomes clear with age is that love and loyalty are not always fixed. You may have spent decades sacrificing for your children and family. You may have put aside your own dreams so theirs could grow. You believed that your love was eternal and that theirs would always be just as strong. But the reality is different. Love can fade. Loyalties can shift. As your children grow, they create lives of their own. They build homes, careers, and families. Slowly, their world moves away from yours. The calls that used to come every week now come less often. The visits that used to last days now shrink to only a few hours. They promise to come soon, but months go by, and you realize that the same people who once depended on you for everything are now living lives where you are no longer at the center. This does not always mean they love you less, but it does mean their attention and loyalty are divided, and sometimes, sadly, it does mean they love you less. Some children distance themselves out of self-centeredness. Some relatives drift away because they see no benefit in staying close. Not every family connection is built to last forever. That is painful to accept, but it is the truth. What brings wisdom is learning how to live without being chained to fading loyalty. Do not measure your happiness by how often someone calls or visits. Build strength inside yourself. Learn to enjoy your own company. Let go of the constant need for approval or attention. Appreciate the moments when love comes, but do not let your peace depend on it. When you stop depending on others for every piece of joy, you find a deeper kind of freedom. With age also comes another reality. Boundaries become necessary. When you are young, you may tolerate things just to keep peace. But as you grow older, your energy, your time, and your heart become too precious to waste. You realize you can no longer let people, family included, drain you with constant demands, disrespect, or manipulation. Setting boundaries is not cruel. It is an act of self-respect. It is saying, I will not allow myself to be treated this way anymore. You learn that saying no is not selfish. It is necessary for survival. You learn that you do not have to answer every call, agree with every demand, or explain yourself to everyone. Some people will be offended when you begin to protect your peace, but that is not your burden to carry. It is not your job to make everyone comfortable at the cost of your own well-being. At this stage in life, your health, your spirit, and your peace matter more than keeping up appearances. You cannot pour from an empty cup, and you cannot keep giving when there is nothing left for yourself. Boundaries are the invisible lines that protect your dignity and allow you to live the rest of your years with freedom instead of resentment. And finally, as the years go on, you realize that peace within yourself matters more than anything else. Family may change, love may fade, and loyalty may shift. Money may expose hidden sides of people, and boundaries may need to be built stronger than before. But at the end of it all, what keeps you standing is not who stays or who leaves. It is your own inner strength. It is the ability to accept life as it comes without letting bitterness take root in your heart. You begin to see that true freedom is not needing everyone's approval. It is not waiting for someone else to make you feel valued. True freedom is when you can sit quietly with or without family around you and still feel whole. It is when you can look back at your life and know that even if others failed you, you did not fail yourself. You loved, you gave, you stood strong, and you carried yourself with dignity. That is the kind of inheritance no one can take away. So yes, family changes. The bonds you thought were eternal may shift. Some people may reveal sides of themselves that hurt you. Others may fade away with time. But none of this takes away your worth. None of this defines the value of your life. In the end, the most important thing is not how many relatives gather around you, but how much peace you carry inside yourself. Create a life that feels truly yours. Find comfort in simple routines. Surround yourself with people, friends, neighbors, and community who want to be there, not those who show up only out of duty. One of the sad parts of growing older is sitting by the phone, waiting for love or attention that no longer comes. The strength of aging, however, is realizing that your value is not tied to who still remembers you, but instead defined by how you choose to live each day. Even if you live alone, even if some relationships fade or loyalties shift, peace comes when you stop chasing what walked away and start embracing what is still present. Respect is not guaranteed. You must reshape your sense of value. Long ago, respect used to be simple. Age alone was enough to command honor. If you were the elder, your word was final. Families would rise when you walked into a room. They would lower their voices in your presence, and they would turn to you as the unquestionable source of wisdom. But times have shifted. The surprising truth is that respect no longer comes automatically. You must define your worth in new ways. As you grow older, society tends to view you differently. You may not be the one bringing in income anymore. You may no longer be the person making the biggest decisions. You may not be the strongest in the room. In a world obsessed with speed, youth, and technology, your wisdom can become invisible if you let it. That is why so many older parents feel overlooked at family dinners, dismissed in conversations, or treated lightly by their own children and grandchildren. But here is the reality. If you want to be respected in your later years, you must show it through how you carry yourself. That does not mean begging, demanding, or complaining. It means living in a way that makes others see your dignity without you having to insist on it. Keep your mind sharp. Stay curious and informed. Speak with calm authority, not with desperation. When others show you disrespect, set boundaries. Do not allow anyone to talk down to you as though your years mean nothing. Respect is not about what you once achieved. It is about what you represent now. If you carry yourself with bitterness, you will be pitied, not respected. But if you carry yourself with wisdom, calmness, and steady strength, you will gain respect even from those who once dismissed you. Remember, aging is not weakness. It is mastery. You have walked through storms your children cannot yet imagine. You have carried burdens they have not even seen. Do not shrink yourself by begging for approval. Redefine your worth and let your presence naturally demand the respect you are due. As the years pass, silence becomes your greatest power. In your younger days, you argued, explained yourself, defended your choices, and fought for every bit of respect. But in older age, you discover something more powerful. Silence is strength. Family drama never disappears. Relatives will misunderstand you. Children may at times disregard you. People may twist your words, gossip behind your back, or dismiss your feelings. In your youth, you may have fought to prove them wrong, but in later years, you understand something deeper. Peace matters more than being right. Silence does not mean weakness, it means mastery. When you stop pouring energy into arguments that change nothing, you protect your health, your peace of mind, and your heart. You do not need to explain your choices to children who refuse to listen. You do not need to fight with siblings who feed on drama. You do not need to justify your life to anyone. Silence is dignity. Silence is strength. Silence is the shield that prevents you from being dragged into useless conflict. When you remain silent, you are not defeated. You rise above it. This is the wisdom of age, knowing that your peace is more precious than winning any argument. You have nothing left to prove. Your life story already speaks louder than words. So when disrespect shows up, when betrayal appears, when family tries to pull you into fights, choose silence, not because you cannot respond, but because you will not waste your precious energy. Your silence in old age is not emptiness. It is power. It is freedom. It is the clearest sign that you do not need outside approval because you already know your worth. So these are the unspoken truths about family and aging. Respect is no longer automatic. You must redefine your value. Love can fade and loyalties may change. Money often reveals the true character of family. And silence, more than ever, becomes your superpower. These truths may sound difficult, but they are also freeing. When you accept them, you stop living with disappointment and begin living with dignity. You stop waiting for others to tell you your worth and start creating peace on your own terms. Old age is not about weakness. It is about wisdom. It is not about being forgotten. It is about remembering yourself. It is not about endlessly chasing love. It is about embracing your own presence and finding peace in who you are.